I have a lot of stuff to unpack here, so we're just going to get right into it. All right, so my talk is going to be about working with your management team. So this is something I feel is very applicable from a small team to a big team, especially if you are a small team and you're trying to get on the up and up. There's like a bunch of foundational stuff that obviously you need to have in place with your systems and things like that. But as your program begins to grow, you encounter new problems, which means you need new systems, which means you need more help, and also it's going to force you to find new and better greater problems that are going to help grow your CPO. And if you're a veteran coordinator and you have a big team right now and you're trying to figure out, all right, we did 2 million, how do we get to this next level? Or you're trying to get to 2 million, whatever it may be for you, you'd be surprised how much more efficiently you can get there if you have the right things in place. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So with that being said, here are 4 main points we're going to talk about, and then we'll unpack each of them real briefly. First one, understanding not the why of delegating with your management team, but the necessity of it. I'm not going to tell you about why you need to delegate. We're all CSPs. We understand why business grows. You need to delegate. You can't do it all alone. Can't do it. Number 2, the different ways to hire the staffing. I've actually tried 3 different ways now on doing staffing, and I feel like I figured out all 3 of them. So you get to have multiple options versus, I don't know if you guys remember, in 2019 I gave my first talk about like recruiting and team meetings and stuff like that a couple of years ago. I've learned a lot since then about this particular subject, because our team has grown a lot since then, and so it's forced me to encounter these new problems and find solutions for them. So hopefully I can cut down the learning curve for you guys. Number 3, taking ownership of problems and being the one to find the solution and then create the system to prevent it from happening again. In our role as a coordinator, you get the praise and you get the criticism. So if there are problems that are happening and it keeps happening over and over again, that's not a team problem, that's a me problem. It's my job to make sure to find these issues and make sure to put things in place through developing a management staff, people to help me with what I am doing, to make sure the quality of life for the team is as best as humanly possible. Make sense? And then the 4th one is just straight up focusing on the bigger picture. I had a really hard time when I was a new coordinator, 2017, late 2017, early 2018, where I was like, gotta do everything. Pato, give me everything. I'll do it all. I'll do it all. I'll figure it out. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm excited to do it. So I'm just going to do everything. And that worked fine when the team is like just trying to hit 1 million on one program. But as the years go on, it's not possible, and that's what I've learned. Scaling any business, it's not possible to do it by yourself. So like the introduction had, our goal is to do 4.5. I do coordinate 2 teams, and I'm really happy. Where's Manny? I'm really happy as well. This is like the Alicia moment as well. I promoted my first coordinator. I'm so excited as well. Manny Martinez runs South Texas. For you guys who don't know, it's basically like the border of the state. And it used to be part of Lone Star for a very long time. And Lone Star grew to a point where it made sense for a division to break off and have their own program entirely. And Manny was one of my assistants for many years. And he's done a great job with them as well too. So the reason why I bring this up is, 1, Manny's awesome. He got his program to 850K this year. They're going to go for $1 million plus this year, I'm sure. But even with losing a section of the territory, we still did 3.9 million between the 2 programs. And so the reason why I bring this up to you guys is that, yeah, our goal is to grow another chunk this year, but straight up, it wouldn't be possible without having systems and the right people in place. And most importantly, because I know most of us are coordinators in this room, the willingness to keep evolving in Cutco 2023. For you guys that went to the CSP retreat, I think I made a comment on stage that I feel very strongly about. Guys, we got to be straight up. Being a coordinator in 2023 is super different than being a coordinator in 2013 now. It's very different. It's its own animal. If you're still thinking in the 2013 mindset, you're going to be leaving so much business on the table. So much. Okay, so let's unpack this first one. Understanding not the why of delegating, but the necessity of it. So first point I have here for you guys is you cannot learn to scale to a certain level without learning to delegate to the right people. I know this is like a big culture shock, but you have to have good people in place. You can get them from various sources, but kind of to piggyback what Alicia said a little bit earlier too, I am really, I feel like it's one of my strengths, good at identifying certain people on the team that have the right attitude that I want to keep around for a long time. You're going to have reps come and go. No matter how good you are at retention, the door is going to go open and closed all the time, every year, right? It's going to happen. Once we accept that, it's part of life. It is what it is. However, though, there are a lot of things you can do in place to identify those right people and put them in the right positions. You know, we have a guy, Paul Schlacke. You know, Paul Schlacke did about almost 250K last year as rep, but a couple years ago, he wasn't selling a lot. Really wasn't. But he was excited to be here, He asked me all the time for help. He was clear a person that identified themselves as someone as potentially long-term with the program, and he has all the same values I have when it comes to what we are trying to do. So he was an easy person. And that's like 1 out of like 10 examples of other Paul Schlackys on both programs now that are helping me run things the way that we want to get them done. Here's something I think can be really real with you guys, like just straight up. If you do not learn this skill, eventually over time, you will constantly be doing tasks that will prevent you from doing the more important ones. There's only X amount of time in the day. You're also a rep. You're also selling. Pretty much all of us are high-level reps, right? And a lot of you guys sell a lot more than I do. But what I would say is that you have to force yourself to learn this skill. You have to. If you take on the role of being the events coordinator, this is my beliefs, if you take on the role of being the events coordinator, your job, like, I feel super bad about this. I can't remember who said this. Was it Leah? I think it was Leah, where it's like your job as a coordinator is to put your program first, put your people first, and then you are on the back burner. Once you accept that, things will get a lot better. I promise you. You are the leader, and part of the thing about leadership, again, my belief, is creating that opportunity and making that quality life for them better first, and then you will get what you want in the long term later. If your end game is to grow the team, then every task you are doing should be driving towards that result and that result alone. You need to identify straight up what your end game is this year, like what your end result, your goal, whatever you want to call it. I call it the end game because I'm a Marvel nerd, and Avengers Endgame was one of the best movies ever, and it was great. If you haven't seen the movies, you got to watch them. They're amazing. I wish Coco was here. She's almost through them. It was so great. Bert knows. So anyways, off topic. I get really excited about that stuff. So, but the reality is very simple. If you're like, our goal is to do X, Y, and Z, my belief is keep it very simple. If your goal is, for this talk, I want to grow more staff, I want to delegate more tasks, I want to do it the right way versus just throwing people into the fire kind of thing, then everything you should be doing should be working backwards from that. If you're like, I don't know where to start, well, hopefully I have a couple things that can help you in the process, but there are a lot of great coordinators in this company who are good at this stuff. Brian Carter's good at it. Josh Muller's good at it. There's a lot of other people in this room that are good at it too, I'm sure. And so, but the idea is that being very honest with yourself on being like, hey, you don't have to do it all and you can't do it all. Because if you feel like you are going to try and do it all, you will inevitably, without indirectly, not intentionally, prohibiting the growth and the ceiling of your program. Once you have to be humble enough to identify that you are the bottleneck. I learned this from Brian a long time ago. Once you feel like you become the bottleneck again, you need to figure out a way, a creative system, a solution to be able to remove that bottleneck and grow the ceiling a little bit higher. What I find that helps with it once you hit to a scaling point is by learning how to delegate properly. By the way, things to delegate, super simple. Here's what we do. I delegate all the scheduling, I delegate all the admin, I delegate all the booth and storage information. All of it. It's all delegated. I used to do it all. I know how to do it all. There's other people, I'm sure if I dove into it, I'm sure I would do it probably better than most of the assistants, of course. But every minute I spend doing that is one less minute that I get to spend on other more important tasks. Straight up. Be honest with yourself. Are you still doing chargebacks? If you are, and you're the coordinator, you need to stop that. Anyone can go in and do the chargebacks. Now I know I'm saying this very blanket statement, but you guys get the point I'm trying to make. It's probably best that you have a part-time assistant or someone on the team that's going to do those chargebacks while you can spend that extra time doing something that is not as delegatable. Is that a word? We'll call it delegatable. Anyways. Here are the things that we don't delegate. I'd never delegate training. I feel very strong about our training program. I'm never going to delegate it. That's just something I feel good about. I never delegate my team meetings, ever. Always the first one there, always well planned out with speakers, content, all that stuff. Like I know one of you guys said about like, oh, this meeting was an email. I never want my people to feel that way because, man, I feel bad whenever that happens. And I also never, ever, ever delegate development of the team. That can mean a multitude of things. I'm not saying I'm going to mentor everyone because that's just impossible. But the idea is taking on the responsibility for myself to make sure that they are having continued development. It's not about how many people you bring onto the program, it's about how many you keep, but that's a different message. Okay, second point here, the different ways to hire staffing. This is more tangible stuff, like stuff to actually like put in right away. Three little points to this. Number one, here's the first thing that I did, timeline-wise. When I was a new coordinator for the first few years, I just did the multiple part-time assistant deal. Basically, the way that worked is I would identify the best members on our program, identify their skill sets, have a one-on-one meeting with them, tell them straight up, this is what I want to do. Are you interested? Great. It's not going to pay super well right now, but it's only a few hours, like a week or a month or whatever they're doing. But you're mostly doing it because you want to contribute to the program. It's a labor of love. That's how I promoted it. I'll pay you $1,000 a campaign. It's really not going to take you a lot of time to do this, but I just need someone to do it for me, and I would really like you to be that person. And we had those people, and we retained them for quite a long time. I was really happy with that. We did that for many years. And then I had a multitude of things that changed where I had to move into a one-time assistant role. I was like, you know what? A lot of the great part-time assistants I had, like a Manny, like a Caitlin Ledbetter, like a Paul Schlocky, and like, again, all these other people I had, a lot of them ended up becoming full-time CSPs. And it didn't make sense in their schedule anymore to probably put as much attention into it as I would like, so I had to identify new people. And so when I switched over to the full-time assistant role, I did hire someone, and their sole job was full-time. I paid her a salary, like a straight-up salary. And I paid her, and she did everything. All the tasks that I delegated, plus my personal rep stuff, like all of it together. Her job for about 1.5 years was to work on a salary, and she worked for me, and that was like that was the first time I ever did that. And I was super sweating going into that. I was like, I'm gonna actually pay someone a salary to actually do all this stuff. But man, do you realize how much more I started selling as a rep, and how much more our team started growing? Like, we started actually having like good chunks of growth right there. And do you realize how much more time I had personally after that? It was nice. We ran that for a little bit. Now that person has moved on, so now the current model we're in right now is like my wife. My wife is awesome. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. She's full-time. She literally quit her job. Like, she had a salary job at a hospital. She was great at what she did. But it got to a point where it made more sense for her to be at home and work. We installed an office desk into the office area and all that kind of stuff, and she works full-time. But guess what happens? As you grow, more problems happen. So this is our current problem right now. Angie can't do it all because she's doing it for Lone Star and Gulf Coast. Guys, we did 1,000 events last year. Jesus. So do you realize how many times you have to keep freaking checking, like make sure like things are booked? We love the events department, by the way, full disclosure. But I know we send in a crap load of stuff. But that's clearly something like that is 100% a full-time job. Managing all that, doing all the stats, doing all the chargebacks, going with me to meetings, taking all the notes down so I don't have to do any of that stuff, so I can just review a 2-page note thing of like whatever I need to do afterwards. It's great, by the way. When you have a full-time assistant right there and you're at a meeting and you're just like talking to the CSPs and be like, all right, we need to do this. Oh yeah, I need to do this, add that. I need to do this, add that. And it's really nice just having a little notes page, being like, all right, these are my 11 tasks I need to do after this meeting so I don't forget anything. It's really nice. But it's gotten to that point where she can't do it all. So we're now this year on the hunt to find a part-time assistant for Lone Star and Gulf Coast who are going to report directly to Angie. So Angie's going to be the main person in charge, but she's going to have a point person on each side she's going to be able to delegate some of her tasks to them. Everyone following so far? I know this is like a lot of words, but hopefully it's all landing. We all took English, right? Yeah, we're good. All right. Third main point here. Taking ownership of problems and creating systems to prevent them again. I heard this quote, I don't know when, but I thought it was money. It's not your fault, but it is your problem. Like I said earlier, guys, if you agree to take on the role as a coordinator, you get the praise, but you also get the criticism too. You are never too big to be criticized. You have to make sure to be honest with yourself on like, hey, what am I good at, what I'm bad at? Guys, I'm bad at a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things I pull from TGP. There's a lot of things I pull from Rising Sun now. There's a lot of things I ask like from different divisions. Like I've learned stuff from North Star, just straight up field training as a rep. And I brought what Bert and Seth and Cloby taught me and brought it back to our program to help our reps have better averages. You know, things like that. There's a multitude of ways you can impact your program, right? You think most of the kids on the team are going to know like just to call Bert and Seth up and just like, I'm going to go field train. Some will, but most won't. So now that I've seen it live in the flesh and I can take that, I can implement to our program, change our scripts up a little bit, get a little bit better with that area. And now that inspires people, because now I promote it all the time, and now we have, heads up Bert, we have a couple of reps that are going to be contacting them to go field training. And it's perfect, because now I'm starting to get to that point where like I need you, not just CSP reps, but like middle tier reps to actually go out there and start field training, not in Lone Star. You need to go field train elsewhere, not with us. Anyways, again, separate thing. Understanding that in our role, we all have the same responsibilities, but we all have different levels of systems we built into our programs. If you're an events coordinator, we're responsible for the same tasks, right? Wipe out all the assistants. If it's just you, we all have the same general job. But all of us have a wide range of our skill level on how good we are at running our systems and our programs and being more efficient, right? Think of it as being a rep. You sell a certain amount, what happens? New problems, you need new systems. You need delegation. You can't do it all forever. You will burn out. You will become less efficient, and there is a real thing called diminishing returns. I've ran across that multiple times. Almost every year I hit a ceiling where I'm like, God, I'm working, and like I'm doing all these other things, and it's great. But I had to be honest with myself, like I hit a point of diminishing returns sometimes. I do. So I'm changing things this year to be able to last 5 to 10 more years in my role. I love my role. I love what I do. This is my favorite job with Cutco. I love it, right? But if I'm going to keep loving it for 5 to 10 years, then I need to be better at this. Lost where I was at. Power pause. So, next side note. One mistake will happen. 2 mistakes is a concern. 3 mistakes needs accountability. Here's what I mean by this. We used to have a problem with gun shows for a while. We're in Texas, greatest country in the United States. Thing about the Texas, we do a lot of gun shows. Hometown pride. So, if you haven't been to Texas, come visit sometime. We'll give you barbecue and everything. It's great. So, but in all seriousness, the thing about gun shows that we discovered a couple of years ago is that they're very disorganized in general. There's a million of them. No matter what we do, we take the booking request, we send it in months in advance. The events department receives it. It says confirmed, booked, paid, all that good stuff, right? We did our job. They did their job. The rep shows up to do their job. And guess what would happen a lot? Cutco, is it under another name? Dante, Reynolds, no, we don't have you here. That happened a lot. And for some reason, it was mostly gun shows. And I was like, well, this is an interesting problem. How do we fix this? I called the promoters, all of them, and was like, hey, I noticed this is happening. What's the way we can do? I know obviously you want us to be there. It shows the check was cash or credit card was paid or whatever. But our people are excited to be there. But it seems like 75% of the time when they show up, there's just not a table reserved. And they have to wait and hopefully get lucky to get put in the back somewhere. So what can we do to make it easy? And they're like, oh, if you just call this guy, he's the guy that's the manager out for the day or for the weekend or whatever. If you just call him, give a heads up, he'll know. He'll be good. I'll be like, that's it? Just call a guy? Call a guy? All right. So, but oddly enough, it worked. And so here's what I've learned about gun shows. Every single gun show that we have on our schedule throughout the year now has an asterisk below it and just says, rep must call name at blank phone number to hold spot. I don't pick up the phone every week and be like, all right, I don't have Angie pick up the phone every week and like do that for him. No, you sign up for the show, that's your responsibility. It's not just delegating the task to the assistants, it's delegating to the rep too, something they can do. They signed up for the show, they pick up the phone, they reserve the table, and guys, it's worked so much better, and it was awesome because this is great timing because last weekend we had one of our young CSP, Spencer Campbell, worked a little gun show was always in that bucket of hard to get a table for. He sold 11 grand, 2 days, $40, $50 show, something like that. Awesome. They aren't always like that, but Matt Foss gave a money talk on gun shows a few years ago. Now my people have been all hyped on gun shows ever since as well. Super underrated, by the way. Should definitely look into them if you're not doing them yet. So anyways, staying on task here. So, but making sure, in all seriousness though, if you have a mistake that keeps happening over and over and over again, by the time it happens 3 times, guys, I take it personal. Because every time that I mess up that stuff and they can't work, that takes away their income and their opportunity. Take ownership. You are not too big to be criticized. So, next thing, take full accountability of mistakes. I said this already. Next point. Find the holes in your program that prevent people from working events or causing unnecessary inconveniences. All right? So this can be a plethora of different things that could come to the table. But here's the reality, guys. I know we work a lot. We work full-time in our roles as reps and CSPs and stuff like that. But again, I always go back to it. If you choose to take on the responsibility of being a coordinator, that comes with a certain level of expectations. And those certain level of expectations I hold for myself and for all of our people is really plain, is that every single year I have to find what we're not good at. I have to be honest on why we're not good at it. And I need to try and work out a multitude of different ways or avenues, I guess, whatever you want to call it, on how I can make sure that they get the maximum amount of opportunity. I started telling our guys probably like a year and a half ago, I was like, my job as coordinator is super simple. It's just to provide opportunity, protect that opportunity, and just do whatever I can to make their lives a little bit better. As long as I do those things, good things can tend to happen, so we're just going to keep doing that until it doesn't work anymore. Last main point here, focus on the bigger picture. This one's short. Here's what I mean by the bigger picture. Key events. This wasn't a big focus for me the first couple years. It has been in recent years. And we've been able to use the same formula from TGP, the same formula that Leah and David have been talking about, and not using it at just Texas is a big state, guys, as well. The Texas State Fair is not Lone Star. That is a Texoma event, and they do A++++ level work with it, right? A lot of the stuff that I have used in our key events, I have taken from Brian and Josh in the TGB program. Small example, straight up, Poteet Strawberry Festival did $9 grand every weekend for like 6 years in a row. The second we just added the second booth and like extended it to a 10 by 20 corner, it went to 30K. And then we were like, let's get a second booth. Where can you put us? Oh, we can put you like 50 feet that way down the stretch. And it's like, I don't know if it's going to work, but let's go ahead and roll with it. And then it did like almost 50K, so it didn't like quite double, but it went from 9 to 30 to 50 just by doing those little things. Imagine doing that across the board. Not my message here, but the point is that key events, you have to be focused on that. You have to be focused on growing your traditional events. You have to be focused on your malls. I am so happy that I know a couple of you guys really like went in on a couple of malls with you guys. Guys, malls are so underrated. Totally different message, but you need to spend time on that. Service events. We suck at service events. I've decided this year we're not going to suck anymore. It's going to be awesome, right? Like I know, right? It's going to be great. We might blow past 4.5. Who knows what will happen? But I am happy that now I have delegated things to a certain point to where I actually can make it an intention to make sure service events are a cornerstone of our business or of our program. Recruiting, training, meetings, managing the assistants. Guys, that's what I spend most of my time doing when I'm not selling, are literally those tasks. Notice none of those included scheduling, admin, and booth stuff. You have to be good at identifying holes and being tough on yourself where you can grow, and you have to pull the resources together for those areas to grow. If you are not good at, you guys are all at different positions with your program right now, but you got to be very real yourself. Where are the holes? Who's good at that stuff? How do I get a hold of them? The great thing is a lot of them are right here. I know not everyone's here, but if you ever need help with stuff, I'm not great at everything. I've had coordinators call me before and be like, hey, can you, I need help with malls. I'm like, I can help you with that. Oh, by the way, I need help with service events. Call Brian. That's what I say. I push people in different directions based on where I think their specialties are at. But I guess to kind of put a bow on it, guys, it's really simple. I think it gets overlooked all the time. It's really important to understand the why. I'm not going to preach to you about a why on like delegating and stuff. You guys know how to do that. But I am telling you this. If you plan on being in this role, be honest with yourself. You're like, I want to take this role for the next 5+ years. Is what you're doing right now going to continue growing the CPO? And I don't mean natural growth, like, oh, we're a little bit better. We're going to add like a couple of events. We're going to grow like by 100K or something like that. No. Like, are you going to have real significant growth? Are you excited about that? And do you have a bigger long-term vision for what the coordinator role really is? Because I certainly do. I think the events coordinator role is going to be pretty significant in the foreseeable future with Cutco, 100%. I'm curious to see what the dynamic looks like with all that kind of stuff. Alicia's already broken down a couple, or broken plane on like the regional stuff, what I thought was awesome. But I think the main thing to remember, guys, is like, if you take on the role, you take on the responsibility. Do not play around with that responsibility. Be serious about it. Do not take on the role to take on your shifts and just like get paid a few extra bucks. You need to do it with the right intentions. And if you delegate and you continue to scale your program with the right intentions, a lot of good things happen for you as well. I thought I was straight up plug, like straight up ego fluff. I profited more as a coordinator this year than I did as a sales rep. I thought that was cool. I finally made 6 figures off my coordinator pay by itself. The coordinator role is what, thank you, Faith, I appreciate it. I say that, that's totally like an ego thing, but I say that too because I believe coordinators can make a significant amount of money doing this role, but do not focus just on that. If you do all the right things in place, but you have a really good lucrative future going out. You cannot view the coordinator role as just like picking your shifts. You have to view it differently. That's what I got.